Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Hello, everyone. I was wondering, was everybody was ghosting me? We have a message. Yeah, to Prateek, I think we do have recordings. I think we need to ask is it Talat, right? Who has the
Oh yeah, I think he's the host of these Google Meets.
yeah.
Okay.
So the meetings get recorded, and he posted the first one, right? The first one we did that. He posted on YouTube the first recording, but of course, I think it's just one of the things that we need someone to do the manual step of getting the recording from Meet, putting it into YouTube and something, and it's not automated. And I think, yeah, I think just the host can do that. So yes, it is. And we also have the AI notes. Do you, I think all the people invited to the meeting receive the notes automatically, or because I receive emails with like the notes, you don't receive them? Okay, so that's the other thing.
I think it's there in that meeting invite, the Google Doc and that meeting invite.
Yes, let me go check. Well, the notes are the notes that we are taking, so those are the manual notes. But there's also yeah.
But there's an AI generated note thing also?
Yeah, there is. That goes since we switched to Google Meet, right? It's recording and then AI generated. So I can add the. I will look up the link for the previous meeting as well to add them to the that.
Yeah, never seen that. Yeah, never seen that.
Well, that'll be awesome. Yeah, if we can have that too.
Yeah, I think it's just all those things. I thought they were sent to the participant, but maybe not.
Hmm.
Okay, so we're. I think we have quorum. So we can get started. So here's the notes document. So feel free to, so there are the notes we take manually. And so feel free, I'll be taking notes during the meeting. And feel free to complement them, especially with any relevant links to PRs or issues or other things that'd be useful. So to start with, I'm just going to go over the room and build the agenda. So just like as usual, you can quickly state your name, where you work at, if you're comfortable doing so, and what you want us to talk about today. And we'll build a list of topics from there, and then I'll do my best to manage the time and go through the topics. So I can start. I'm Julien, I work for Datadog, and what I'd like to follow up on today is the process for improvements stuff, adding encodings and things like this. Yeah, and feel free to just do as is happening right now. Like Aihua is doing, like please feel free to add textually things in the agenda. Directly in the notes as well. This is useful. So I'll go in the order of in alphabetical order, and we can start doing this. So first on my list is Aditya.
Hi, I'm Aditya. I'm with the CNUTB variant team. I'm just here to listen.
Sorry, Aditya, your sound is really low. Can you repeat what you said?
Hi, I'm here with the CNUTB variant team. I'm just here to listen.
Okay. Aihua?
Hi, my name is Aihua from Snowflake. I'm more interested in variant. I tried to follow up on variant to finalize the variant spec.
Nice. Yeah. Andrew?
My name is Andrew Lam. I work at Influx Data. I'm here mostly to listen, and I work a lot on the Rust implementation of Parquet. So, thank you.
Ashish?
Hey, I'm Ashish. I work with Sumo Logic. I'm just here to listen in. Thank you. Back to you.
Fokko?
Hello, everyone. My name is Fokko Driesprong. I work also for Databricks, and I'm very interested in getting a new release out of the Parquet format.
Gijs?
Yeah, I'm Gijs. I work at Polars. I'm mostly here to listen in, but I'm also quite interested in the IEEE total ordering PR. But I also see that Jan is not here, so probably that does not really make sense to talk about. But
I think he was here last week, but something happened. He dropped out before we got to his topic. We can okay. I'll write it down and we see if we have people to talk about it. Martin?
Hello, Martin Prammer from Carnegie Mellon, the variant team there, and here to talk about variants.
Everybody's favorite topic. Yes. Mengmeng.
Hi, I'm Mengmeng. I work for Snowflake. I'm mainly interested in the Parquet encoding. I don't have anything to report, so I'll just be listening. Thank you.
Micah?
Hi, I'm Micah. I work at Databricks. Just here to listen.
Michael?
I am Michael. I work at FIS. I mostly work on the Haskell implementation for Parquet, and I'm here to listen.
Yeah, feel free to fix if in the notes I didn't write things properly. Naohiro?
Hello. I work for Mitsubishi Electric, and I'm interested in coding and mainly here for listening.
Prateek?
Hi, I'm Prateek. I work for Snowflake. Today, I'm mostly here to listen in.
Brian?
Hey, I'm Brian Hewlett from Google. I'm just here to listen today.
Rok?
Hey, Rok from Worldpoint here. Mostly to listen, but curious about the flat schema stuff.
The what schema stuff? Sorry. Oh, the flat
sorry,
buffer, the
white schema flat
white
buffers.
schema, yeah.
Yes.
Russell?
I'm Russell. I work at Snowflake. I'm not sure if this is worth bringing up, but I did want to discuss the concept of empty structs in Parquet. This is something we've kind of hit a few times in Iceberg, because we have other formats that do allow for empty structs, and Parquet does not, which means we have a lot of special casing sort of logic. So I'm wondering if anyone else has thoughts around that.
An empty struct is it functionally equivalent to a Boolean or something? It's something that can be null or not, but contains no data.
In our use case, we don't even use it as that. For us, we just don't care. We just we have logic that's occasionally like we have a struct and you put a certain number of elements in it, and sometimes there'll be no elements. And for other file formats, we can just say, well, the schema is this is an empty struct, but Parquet will throw an error if we attempt to do that. So we don't actually care what's there or if it's null or not. We just don't want to have to special case the schema generation.
It was my fault. I made partition required.
It usually is Ryan's fault. And last but not the least, Ryan.
Am I last? Okay. I'm Ryan. I work at Databricks. I'm interested in variant testing because I believe that we have Go passing the tests, but not the optional tests. And so I'd like to talk about, can we finalize the variant spec and then figure out how we want to move forward with the optional tests. And then I'm also interested in, I think, a higher level discussion of how do we make sure that we ensure quality and that we want, essentially about format risk. Because what I'm seeing is we're dealing with format risk by putting up hoops to jump through or roadblocks that you have to overcome. But I think we're introducing a secondary type of risk that is the format is never going to evolve. So that's probably way lower priority, but I'm concerned about that in general.
Okay. Sorry, just reordering things. Okay, so today we have variants already being on the last leg of finalizing variants. We have potentially talking of the IEEE float ordering discussion, PR. There's the empty struct, int96 stats, and I had put also following up on the process for improvement. Maybe let's start with the variants. I think this is really the most urgent thing at the moment. So who wants to get started? Aihua, you want to get started, or
Sure. Maybe I can get started, and Ryan, if you have anything, you maybe can add. So in the past 1 or 2 weeks, what we have done is we have generated a bunch of test cases from Iceberg, and we have verified from Java and Go side. And also we have regenerated test files from Go, and then tested from reading from Java side. So kind of like a cross validation to make sure write and read works as expected. So that's what we have done. So from that perspective, seems like we have no ambiguity on the spec. We can interpret without any ambiguity. So I'm kind of propose to kind of move forward to finalize a variant. Yeah, so that's kind of like try to address comments from a mailing list. So I just want to hear if you guys have any other thoughts, anything else we want. It's kind of like blocking to finalize the spec. Ryan, do you have anything to add?
I'll put my hand up and go behind Martin.
Oh, yeah, Martin, go ahead. Yeah.
just to quickly jump in, those same test cases have been integrated with the Rust library as well. We're still working on getting all of the functionality done, but for now, we're treating this as the target for everything we want to get done on top of what we're looking to do with optimizing shredding. But that's sort of a different bin. For us, those are the test cases. And I think it's worth finalizing those. Even if we can't reach finalizing the spec, we should at least try and move to finalize those test cases as support this, off to the races.
So that's kind of where the remaining discussion is like the differences between the test cases and the spec. Now, we went around and around and around and around and around on the spec. So I want to address like the differences there. What we were going for in the spec was focusing on what you must write and how to interpret things that are written correctly. So I think that the spec covers those things. Now, the test cases also cover things that shouldn't be written, but are easily interpreted. So for example, if you omit a value column, right, the spec says, hey, you always have a value column. Even if you have a typed value column, you should always have a value column. So when generating those test cases and when building the Iceberg and Java implementations, we said, okay, well, we're going to support cases where it's slightly incorrect, but we know exactly what you're going for. I think that is being, you know, the spec should be strict in what it requires you to write. And at the time, we didn't want to say, well, there are all these cases that everyone has to support anyway, because we're not going to be strict in what you write. So we can go back through and update the spec to say all of these cases where we can interpret your data are valid and you can use them if you want. I don't see a ton of value in that. I would much prefer, you know, having the spec written to what you should write and have implementations tested on, you know, being broadly accepting with the input, because we also have error cases where it is ambiguous and you should fail. So to me, I think that we have far exceeded the level of we're all comfortable with the risk introduced by the variant shredding and encoding spec, and I would suggest that we move forward. Micah?
Yeah, Micah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the solution we came up with is we marked things that are not conforming with the spec as like invalid, and there's a PR open for that. I think that's the right solution, right? Like make it clear that these need not be supported and that writers, yeah. And I think with Go being able to write in Java read, that solves the last compatibility concern that we have. So I don't see it before.
Okay, so for the next step, yeah, I was about to write the email. So should I, you know, go ahead and send out the vote to find out a spec? Is that the next step?
Yeah, I think to remove the experimental.
Okay, okay, sounds good, sounds good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so after that, I'm gonna try to push for release of 1.16. Yeah, so that's kind of next step. Yeah, thank you.
Huge. Like we're huge. We gotta have a celebration. At least acknowledge. That's great. Let's do it. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's funny because it started like, oh, like there's something we need to decide, and actually, no, everybody agrees on everything. Like it's.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to be there.
Okay.
Cool.
So we said move the spec to mark it as experimental. Is that the?
Yeah, remove. Remove under.
Remove experimental.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to vote on that, or are we pretty much all the people that are going to vote? I mean, probably go.
Let's just formalize it on the list. I think it's better to
Yeah.
formalize it on the list than doing it in this meeting, I would say.
That's where I was
Yeah.
heading.
Yeah. Fokko also shared the PR. Yeah. So basically, I'm gonna have the PR in the email, and you can also approve that.
So we'll do this as a vote, right? And it's
Yeah. As a vote, and then also approve the PR.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
the
you.
vote. Yeah, like the vote should link to like the Java implementation and the Go implementation. And yeah, if anybody has issues, Matt's a maintainer on the Go implementation, so I think it should be fine.
Okay. So I put action item for Aihua on that, right? Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah. Go ahead, Fokko.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think we actually need 2 releases, right? One for the format and one for the Java library itself.
That's probably right.
Yeah. Nice.
There we go. Thanks, Aihua, for shepherding this through. Like, you've been handling so much of the back end work for this. I really appreciate how much you've been able to link everyone together, where we've got Go, Java, Iceberg, and now Rust coming along too. So you've been fantastic help.
Well, thanks for everybody, for helping out.
Yeah, and don't hesitate to do this on the mailing list as well. I think it's kind of, you can tell everybody about this. I agree, I concur. Thank you all for pushing this through. Cool. So okay, so that's is there anything else you wanted to discuss, or are we good? Or maybe now that we said we agree, like no more questions, right? It's just like this is it. Sounds good. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about is the process for improvement. So I think last time we talked a bit about the document, right? Like, so Micah, you wrote a doc. And so what I did to go with the doc is basically it's more of like the process to make the proposals for improvement visible and have a place where people can see them, can find them, and it's kind of also an example of people can see how it's done without necessarily digging through the mailing list archive. So what I was doing, and I think part of the discussion is, I think we want to make sure this doesn't, the goal is to make it easier for people to suggest improvement to new encodings and things like that. And it's not to make it look like it's really complicated to make any changes to Parquet, right? And I think what I'm going to do probably on my PR proposing this is to make it clear that this is for bigger changes to the format, right? Like things like when you add an encoding, it has an impact on everybody who integrates with Parquet. So there is a bit of a process. Or if we are making changes that are not backward compatible, right? Adding an encoding, adding a compression, things that you need to understand to read the file. And that's a bit different from things that you can still read the file if you don't understand it. Like, when we added Bloom filters, for example, I think people can totally ignore it and still be able to read the files, right? So there's a bit of different constraints and, like more or less scrutiny on certain things, depending on the impact they have on the ecosystem and like everybody having to understand this. And we want to avoid being in a fragmented world where some system understands some files and some understand other files, and really the cross compatibility is important. So I think just wanted to check on that. So there's a bit two things, like how we talk about how we vet and how much work you need to do to validate that we're going to add something to the format. It depends a bit on the type of thing. So maybe we need to articulate a bit more, the various types of contribution and what requires a more formal proposal versus not, right? Like variant is a good example of something, we could have put through this process. So we did more informally, through the Mengmeng thing, but we can formalize a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think the proposal is fine. Like, I think it adds a little bit of process, but maybe that process and visibility is good, like, especially for things that end up not getting passed. It provides good examples of like why they might not have. So, and sort of like on institutional memory and mailing list digging. I think there was one comment by Andrew that I agreed with on the PR. I'm forgetting what it was, but like I think moving forward with it makes sense to me. I don't know if we want to vote, like have a mailing list vote or just merge it. I think big process changes I generally like showing that there's consensus in the community for, but yeah. So I think that addresses probably the first question. Second question, Brian, this is probably a good place to talk a little bit about your concerns.
Yeah, so I think I like the additional, like, sort of herding cats part with the process, right? Like, hey, here's where we're going to track proposals. Please write it up this way, and this is what we're looking for. I think really helps people be successful. I think though that in at least a few instances, and I'm probably forgetting a couple, we've done geometry, geography, we've done variant lately, we've done NAND counts, and then there are other things like the footer changes and new encodings. I don't think that having a fixed set of rules is beneficial to a lot of those cases. Like, the NAND count issue is a good example of, once it's in thrift, right? Like, do we really expect to have a significant problem implementing that feature specifically? Do we need, two implementations that have, been tested across in order to rubber stamp that and say, hey, we think this is correct? I want to push back on this idea that we set up hurdles that must be knocked down before you can move forward, because I think that we are impeding progress that way. And I've certainly felt that way on a lot of the variant stuff as well, where people implementing these things have said, yeah, I have high confidence that we're going to be able to implement this, that it's not going to be a problem. We have a full end-to-end implementation. I don't see a ton of value generated by waiting and even blocking the Java release for a long time in order to get this out. So I would definitely want to push back and say our bar should not be 2 implementations with cross compatibility tests for every single change to the Parquet spec. I think it should be PMC members use their best judgment, and when we have reduced risk in the minds of the people involved in PMC members, we can move forward. I think that's a better bar than setting up rules, because we want to be able to take things on, and we don't want, for example, Jan on the mailing list was like, well, I guess this is going to take a year to get multiple implementations, and like, what's the point?
I don't. So I think there's a few things to maybe unpack there. Let's leave aside what happened with the Java release. I think having the cross implementations found ambiguities in the specification, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like, there were some things that Go was not doing correctly that arose out of the 2 implementations. So
not that I'm aware of.
we hit the same ambiguity that we were arguing over all that time in the test case, where the shredded value differs from the one in the binary.
There was that. There was also like a I think
Like
there's
a null corner case or something.
yeah, I think there's an issue with time also, and something with decimal. I would probably has the details. I wasn't paying very close attention there, but and geography. I also think there were some compatibility issues or ambiguities that had to be resolved. Like once we got someplace, right? So like, I think there's value there. I think if something's simple, then like producing the two implementations is relatively low effort, and it's what reduces risk, right? Like I think it also shows a willingness in the community to support some of these things, right? Like if nobody's interested in doing it in a second implementation, then it might not be what, like from a compatibility standpoint, and keeping Parquet as like the lingua franca for storing data, you want some amount of enthusiasm to get like a second implementation in. Those are my thoughts on Martin.
I guess.
I think. Go ahead.
Sure. Continuing on with it, what we saw with variant was this really rough chicken and egg situation where we had all these test cases that were like, okay, yeah, these are probably going to be good for us, but we want to finalize them, but we can't finalize them because we haven't finalized the spec. Okay, we'll go through and do this like half measures approach, and we'll just share things unofficially or so. And it did end up creating some really strange barriers that I don't think were necessary for the overall the push forward. But at the same time, it is worth noting that variant has had a huge amount of popularity. Like everyone's here right now. We've got all the different languages showing up. And so there is already buy-in. And I think there likely is a strong middle ground of at least having PMC members who are saying, okay, we want to push this forward, we want to do this, but then also tie in a bit of like, look, we're going to be the ones shepherding these implementations. And once we think these are ready, we can start advancing the clock quite a bit faster than waiting for everything to finish, finalize, then move on to the next step, where a lot of work can be done at the same time across multiple people, so we don't have this case of hard blocking again.
What I'm suggesting is not, not completely throw this out, right? We know that cross implementation validation is good to have, and not something where we want to just ignore it. But what I'm suggesting is that we look at this in terms of risk, and we use judgment in order to get past that and minimize risk. Rather than saying, you must do this before we can move on, it is, hey, are we all confident that we've done due diligence here? And that due diligence can differ whether we're talking about adding a NaN count field to a thrift struct, or whether it is something like adding a new type. Variant is a huge thing. And I think that it's a different order of magnitude as well if we're talking about footer changes, if we're talking about other things. And I would just say that I want those things to reflect PMC members' judgments about how to unblock and keep moving while reducing risk, rather than necessarily being like, oh, well, we don't want to release that type annotation because then people will be able to create files with it. I think the risk of someone creating a file that we're going to have to support in 10 years with a variant type annotation that is invalid has just not been a high risk, or one even worth acknowledging for, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months, something like that.
Right. And so I think like But that's why the release I think is separate, right? Like, so I think the release, like, I think there was differing opinions there on like whether it could have gone out or not, and still just said that it's experimental until we like finished off.
But the point is, like, what we were saying is rules based rather than judgment based.
No, so I think we agree, right? Like, so we're not saying that this is going to be the same rules for everything, right? Like, I think there's a bit of discussing depending on the impact on the thing, right? Like, we apply more of those things, but right, if it's small things, and I think we've been definitely in the variant case, we've been using the PMC's judgment. It's just the PMC is not one mind, right? So there's a little bit of work to get to consensus and agree on what the PMC's judgment is in this case, right?
It has felt more like we are applying rules than actually like trying to figure out how to move forward. And that's what concerns me, because if we rely on saying like, well, we said that we were going to do it this way, and even though it doesn't make sense right now, or in my opinion, it didn't make sense. I just feel like we were, we got into these awkward situations where it was hard to move forward. And I really don't think that, this has significantly reduced risk in the last 3-4 months at least.
Yeah. Andrew, you want to say something? Good.
In my opinion, my perception is what slowed down variant was not necessarily agreement that, some rule or whatever. It was like just getting examples, for example. I know it's like my favorite whipping boy, but like, I wonder if we just took a more lenient approach to getting stuff through the spec, like would people's, the urgency to actually generate stuff that would actually help other people implement it go down. So I worry about like being like, well, as long as it looks good for us, right, done, right, and everyone else can pick up the pieces afterwards. That's obviously that's probably not what you're proposing, Ryan, but like that's the far, that's like the extreme version of what could happen if you're not careful.
But I think so variant is like a weird thing anyways, because it came in like as something that was effectively like donated, right? Like I think, I guess geography would be a more interesting case, which I think like flowed through a lot quicker. And I don't know the reasons for it. Like in terms of generating examples, it seemed like nobody wanted to like do the work of like just patching this stuff locally and running it with like what was checked in, right? Like there's a problem with annotation, and like, the people that were doing the Java thing were busy and didn't want to like take the extra steps in the build, was my impression. And then right, and then like I think people working on Rust like didn't necessarily have the expertise to do that, or again, like time constraints in terms of learning what was necessary, right? So I think we should be unblocking. I think if we're like spec first, then requiring like demonstration of compatibility is an important part of that. And yeah, some of it's very low risk, but generally the things that are low risk should be easy to like turn around.
So I think that the geometry and geography are good examples because those are type annotations, right? Like the actual binary that you store has values is, well-known binary. Like you have a external library that either works with it or doesn't. And, we can figure out like how to represent a bounding box, right? But that's easy work. And do we really need to test that we're using the same thrift definition? What matters there is really like, do we agree on the meanings of these things?
But sure, but the way we know we agree on the meaning of these things is by writing the test, right? It's kind of, there's a little bit of, we know we can do it, but it's just like.
Right, but again, like what? Right, which I think once we formalize the spec, like I think it was pretty quick to implement. I know Dewey's here. I think you were heavily involved in that implementation stuff, like, do you have impressions from doing the geography things?
Oh yeah, I like. I think that we didn't know what we had agreed upon until we finished writing the implementations.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they were all resolvable, but yeah, I think that we definitely benefited. I've seen a number of the 2 implementation rules sitting in Arrow. We definitely have benefited from that. Often it's even the same person doing both implementations. And I think that also has a bit of, it's better when there's 2 people that have to agree on it. But yeah, Matt certainly did the go and C or go in Java for a number of ones, or C++. Yeah, I think that it's very difficult to know that you actually agreed on something until you've written a test, as Julian said.
And I guess I'm not sure we need to take like concrete action now, unless there's something specifically you're suggesting, Ryan, or like there's an upcoming thing that you want to like.
I just want to highlight that whenever we apply things as rules, we are, we're potentially moving slowly, right? We should look at it as, are we reducing the risk of getting something wrong and introducing incompatibilities by moving forward with this? And that's really what I've seen here, is like people being discouraged by rules. And yes, it does help to have multiple implementations. I just want to make sure that we're able to actually change the spec, and especially as we move into more invasive things like adding new encodings and changing the footer.
Right, and that, like, I guess I also almost take the opposite approach. There might be like a higher bar here, but having clear rules like provides a rubric saying, like, okay, we passed this thing, it's time to move on, right? Like, it's something that cuts both ways. It might be, so it's a question of like, yeah, that's sufficient. Like, once we get agreement, we know where the line is for like saying this is officially adopted, versus somebody coming in at the last minute saying like,
yeah,
no.
setting expectation and not moving the goalpost, right, is also the good side of this, right? I guess is another way to say it.
It cuts both ways. I mean, we can adjust as we do more of the stuff, but like, I actually think that the quality bar should be high for these changes. So I mean, like I said, we're of slightly different opinions. I understand the concern.
I'm not saying the quality bar shouldn't be high. I'm just saying that we should use judgment instead of rules.
Yeah, so I think this meeting is happening, right? And we have discussions, and it's very, very open. So I don't think we have to worry about getting stuck on rules, right? Like we just like, yeah, we talk about it. Yeah, Ryan, you'll show up in the meeting and you say, hey, why are we following this rule? Doesn't make sense. Then we'll talk about it, then we'll adjust, right? Right? I don't know. I'm not worried about getting stuck on following rules just for the sake of it and checking boxes, right? So we can put more language into the doc and the thing to say, hey, this is the expectation, but we are not, we are going to use our best judgment, make sure we limit the risk without impeding contribution. And definitely the goal is to enable people to contribute more encodings and all of that, right? We want those things to happen, right? That's at one point we're talking about this, I think.
Alkis, I think you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think there's two types of changes to the spec that should be treated differently. I can go with some examples just to demonstrate. So type annotations, for example, they don't cost anything. It's like you add another value to an enum, it's not going to bloat your metadata, it's not going to make some kind of trade-off, it's not going to increase the size of the footer in any way, it's not going to increase the complexity of the writer or the readers too much. So it's kind of like low bar. But then when you're talking, we're going to add an encoding. Okay, let's add 10 encodings. But then your writer now just has to search the space to figure out what's the right encoding. every new engine that comes in, it needs to decode all these new encodings. It's much more heavyweight. It needs to be slowed down. So some features need, like, they're higher risk and they also have different trade-offs, and you need to think more about them. But there's some obvious stuff that you don't really want to block on anything, right? It's like, let's add another type annotation. Sure, go ahead, right? You can add 1,000, it's not going to change anything for anyone, right? It's just a type enum. If your engine doesn't support it, well, it doesn't, it's okay. You're not going to get like a slowdown in processing Parquet files in all the engines out there because you added 10 encodings, for example. Or you add a field. Another example is you add a field in annotation to the column chunk, a new field, and it's like 8 bytes, and then it's another 8 bytes, another 8 bytes, and suddenly you have tables with 100 columns, and your footer is like 2 megabytes. So now you have a problem because you kept adding stuff when maybe you should have thought of putting it somewhere else. So we should split them into things that do not have a trade-off and they're kind of obvious, and things that have trade-offs, and those we need to treat with more scrutiny.
I agree that there are things that we need to treat with more scrutiny, especially the encodings. But we also have not been able to add new encodings in like the last 8 years, something like that. And when new encodings are proposed, I'm a little concerned about having a situation where we say, have you tried it on this? Have you tried it on this? Have you tried, like...
So that's the point of writing it down, right? Like, so you're not in this situation that everybody gets a different answer, and like they come back with the answer and then they get another thing, right?
But we have so far discouraged people from being able to get things in. And I think we need to treat that as a problem that is just as big a problem for the long-term health of the project as adding a bad encoding.
Yeah, but so the process we're talking about is not for preventing encoding to go in, right? It is for enabling encodings to go in, because right now,
so maybe this is
process is preventing, right?
So Julian, maybe this is the thing we should focus down this change to just encodings and decide kind of at high level what we will want to see to get a new encoding in, to unblock that effort instead of trying to come up with generic rules for everything.
Yeah, there aren't. I think the one remaining block for like getting a new encoding in is just like deciding on an initial corpus to say, here's what we evaluated against, and here are the numbers, right? Like I think that's the like one piece of ambiguity that has not been like fully fleshed out in my mind.
Okay. Mike, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, that definitely relates to the benchmarking effort that you were putting together a while ago, Micah, and setting I mean, this is where I guess the rules can help accelerate it, because if you have a standard set of this is what you need to cover for the encodings, this is what we're focused on, here are the corpus files, you can then add encoding specific files to demonstrate better functionality, everything else fine. But if you hit this core set, then we don't have concerns. And trying to add more files, that just ends up shifting the goalposts.
Right. And so like right now, I think there was a misinterpretation in the document that I wrote that like all of that corpus was like in scope. I need to go back and reword it to make it much clearer. Like we just need to pick a few of those are things that make people reasonably happy. And like,
but even then, what if I have an encoding that works, really well for, doubles and a certain narrow subset of data? What if I have an encoding that works really well for things that have already been encoded as WKB? Like those are
that's great. Sorry.
And I'm just saying, like, using judgment and saying, oh, for this, we think that we want to have this type of test, right?
Well, so for like, that's why we want a corpus that has doubles, right? Like we aren't evaluating saying like you need to improve, the encoding needs to improve like across the board, like Parquet thing.
Even there, what we're saying, I guess, is that, it has to be an encoding that works on all doubles, not doubles from a very specific field.
So that's something we can discuss, right? If there's a lot of value in increasing doubles for a specific field, like why not, right? Like we can discuss this. So I think my opinion is one of the reasons we don't have encodings is a new encoding showing up, because it's completely unclear how we're going to validate things and do that, right? So I think it is important to write down a bunch of stuff, right, and like give directions. So not everything is going to be applicable in all cases, right? But we should still write things down. We can, like Micah was saying, we can add language that says not everything is going to be applicable in all the cases, and we'll pick and choose depending on the case, and that's fine, right? But we still need to write those things down, because the fact that we haven't written anything down is that nothing is happening, right?
Yeah,
that's the biggest impediment.
Right, but like ideally things aren't like an exceptional case, right? Like if you have a core corpus and like somebody comes up with something that is like, I have this new data set that this works really well on. The question is like, it's a judgment call of like, do we want like to add a new encoding that is very special?
We don't need to decide now, right? Like when this comes up,
that's the point.
Like to Ryan's point, we'll have a discussion, right? This will come up in this forum, and people will chime in and they say, like, actually, things are changing. This data set is more important. Let's take this into account, and we'll be fine. And I don't think us writing down what we know today prevents us from changing our, improving things in the future, right?
I really just don't want to discourage people from attempting to contribute. Making what we know of the process more clear is hopefully going to help. But I don't want to have us apply what we see as rules here and say, well, if it doesn't make a difference on, the New York taxi data set, then we're just not going to do it. We need to be open to these things, and also open to the fact that something has to get in. So it's not going to be perfect, but there are a lot of more modern encodings, and we should support one of them.
So I'd like to point out that we all vehemently agree on this, right? So what we need to work on in the wording in the document, so it really comes out to the reader that we want you to contribute. We want to help you doing this. This is how we think we can help push this through. And we'll help you every step of the way, making it happen. Right?
We may also want to just take on as a PMC we know we need better numeric encodings.
Yes.
Should we go do a survey of what's out there and choose one and put it in?
So yeah, maybe that could be a proposal, right? That could be a proposal. We can add it. It would make it visible. We know we need this, and we know we need people to come and propose things, and we need researchers to show off their smarts in adding encodings to Parquet or something.
I mean, in the previous thing, there was some talk about doing ALP. I think that, right, and somebody from Snowflake wanted to either try ALP or FSST. I don't know if we scared them off or not.
I think, yeah, we want them to do this, right? But at the same time, I think we said we don't want to add 5 different numeric encodings, right? We probably want to pick the best, and possibly ALP is the best, right? So to some measure of complexity and adoption in the ecosystem and so on, right? So we need some process like this, right? Or we at 5 and I don't know.
Going back
One of the reasons for the extensions is that, especially for numerics where new encoding is needed, anyone who is doing this can dupe the data in their format, in their writer, test it out in prod across various workloads, and come back with the numbers and say, I tried this, I rolled it out in production as an extension, it works, here are the numbers, let's make it one other encoding and call it done.
Right, that actually sets up quite a high bar, because you need to be working for some sort of hyperscaler or some sort of corporate entity, right? That's a different type of gatekeeping. I think, I don't know if somebody's going to come up with like ALP, like, or something like that. Like, I think there's like two sides of this. One is like, yes, maybe it's intimidating, or maybe it is intimidating to add a new encoding. Two, I don't think anybody has had bandwidth to actually like try to work through some of the stuff and do it at least in like a reasonably like rigorous engineering manner, right? Like,
so we have 3 minutes left. So I'm just going to wrap up the meeting. Not sorry. This is a really important and really great discussion, but we're just wrapping up. So I'm going to suggest as next step, we work. So we comment on Micah's doc, or we comment, and I think we can work on how we want to frame this, right? Like, and maybe it's not just the process on how we're going to vet your contribution, but it's also community outreach in like encouraging people in contributing certain things, right? And framing how we are going to use judgment, and it depends on the impact on the features, right? And like, you don't always need to open a proposal, but then it's also give you visibility and, you know, create, we want to make it more likely for the contribution to go through, right? So we work on that, and then we follow up maybe in a couple of weeks, and we can make progress on getting started actual new encodings, right? Does that make sense? Agree? We like this?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, so we didn't talk about the float ordering, the empty structs, the in96, and some of the things. So if people have pressing questions, like, please just follow up on the mailing list, and hopefully someone will answer. Otherwise, we'll talk about this in person next time. Sorry about that. That sounds good?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Alkis, I think one of the things, like, people wanted to talk about the footer, but thank you for joining.
I have the doc already. It's missing the stats. I can share it if you want to read about implementation details, or I can present it next time with the stats from prod.
Yeah, either way you can present it, or yeah, or send an email on the mailing list or something. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you all.
And we did roll it out in prod, like I suggest for the encoding. So we have numbers from terabytes of data.
Oh, that's what you're doing with all the money you're raising, right?
Yes.
Testing out.
We burn CPU testing Parquet v3 footers.
Okay, well, thank you all. See you next time, and let's follow up on the mailing list. Oh yeah, and then a happy note, right? Remember, we agreed on variant, and it's shipping. This is great. See you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.